Good evening. This regular meeting of the Common Council is now called to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Gates.
Here.
Councilmember Abram.
Here.
Councilmember Lingenfelter.
Here.
Councilmember Miles.
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley.
Here.
Councilmember Yocum.
Merry Christmas.
Councilmember Waite.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. The invocation this evening will be given by Greg Seitz of Hilltop Four Square Church. Could you kindly join me in standing?
I don't believe Mr. Seitz is here.
Oh, thank you so much. Councilmember Waite, would you offer a prayer? Thank you.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to be here, to come together to discuss the wants and the needs of our city. We ask Thee that Thou will bless us with Thy Spirit, that we can make correct choices, that we can do Thy will, and that we will have Thy Spirit with us. These things we pray in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. There's no need for an executive session this evening, so we'll start with the approval of minutes. Item number 1A, special meeting minutes of December 6th, 2016. Everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes. We'll entertain any corrections or additions.
I'll make a motion to accept minutes as noted.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? All right. Item 1B, regular meeting minutes of December 6th. Any changes or corrections?
Madam Mayor, I have offered one small change to Annie Meredith on page 19. The word owed will become owned, and given that change, I would move that we accept the minutes of December 6th, 2016.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign? No, thank you. Appointments. Moving on to item 2A, discussion and appointment of vice mayor. Just a little background for everyone here. The vice mayor would preside over a meeting in my absence, would also help me participate and represent the city at functions in case there's a conflict or overscheduling, those kind of things. In my absence, would sign the city paperwork. Is there anything else I'm missing? Okay. So that's essentially the criteria, and at this time I'll entertain an appointment.
Madam Mayor, if she would accept, being that she's the most tenured person on the council, I'd like to nominate Jen Miles for vice mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further nominations?
I would like to nominate Travis Lingenfelter for vice mayor.
Any other names nominated? Wow, this is pretty awesome. There's just two amazing candidates here. Again, this is just really more of a time commitment that if I'm unable to be at an event, that you could be there in my stead. Is there any discussion on this, or shall we call for the vote? Any further discussion? Jen, you have anything you want to add?
Well, I would thank you first, Mark, for that nomination, and I would accept the nomination and say that I would be glad to fulfill this position as vice mayor. I would like to be more actively engaged in the strategic visioning, goals, and objectives that we are going to design and implement. And I think really I bring the experience, leadership, and the reasoned analytical approach to problem solving and administration that would assist you and the city as we balance our competing interests and opportunities. And we have a lot of opportunities ahead of us, and in economic development, and the initiatives we're going to pursue to promote industry, retail, downtown revitalization, but we have to balance that with our quality of life issues on public safety and roads, water, and all the while maintaining our fiscal accountability to the citizens and making sure that we keep a stable government. So with all those things to balance, I think I bring a good background that is diverse and has the experience in the council, but also just through a career of 24 years of service here in the city of Kingman. So I guess I would be glad to do this, and thank you again for the nomination.
Okay. Travis, do you want to comment?
Sure. Well, just for the council members that don't know who I am and what my background is, I've worked for the city of Tucson, for Mojave County for many years, for the nonprofit sector for a little while. In the private sector, I worked for a few years. Former economic development director for Mojave County. We won a National Counties Award for a small business retention program that we did. We were very proud of. We were able to, in just 2 short years, bring 2 manufacturers and a Henderson Trucking, which is a logistics firm, to Kingman. So I was proud of that. Also was very proud to be asked by the county to serve as their legislative liaison during the Arizona legislative session one year. And that was interesting. Worked with them on special projects. I see Gene in the audience. We worked on the Willow Beach rainbow trout stocking issue to keep the rainbow trout. That was a 50-year trout stocking program that the Fish and Wildlife Service was just going to stop administratively, and we were able to work with them to keep that program going. So looking forward with economic development and the Kingman Crossing project, the industrial park, downtown redevelopment, I think I've got the business expertise. I've got a master's degree as well. I think I've got the education and the experience to serve you all well. But
What an amazing
Yeah.
council we have.
Well-
There's so much talent.
I would add, I didn't go into my background because I probably wrongly assumed people know a little bit of what I've done, but for the benefit, I agree Travis has done all of those things well and I think he has something to contribute, truly. But I do think that the issues need a balance that is economic development, but as I said, includes that balance for the quality of life issues and the fiscal accountability that this city really needs to sustain itself. My background is diverse. I have worked in the government, business, and education sectors, and as such have spearheaded numerous business and regional economic development plans. As MCC's Vice President of Applied Technology and Sciences, I oversaw the programs for health, business, industry, and technology, and so I'm very familiar with these sectors. I have created, I've been very instrumental in creating a number of organizations and programs in this community, including the Kingman and Mojave Manufacturing Association, the Coyote Youth Program, and I was a founding person in the Reality Store, even for our middle schools. I also started a nonprofit that was called Mojave CareNet that was instrumental in getting the Humane Society contracted with the county. And as a city council person, I have kept my pledge to promote fiscal stewardship. I have, I think, been a voice of reason in times of some drama that we have had in the last few years that I've been here, and promoted the enactment of protocols and procedures for the council, which I hope were handed out during your orientation, and participated fully in commissions and boards that, local and statewide, that keep me connected with the citizens. And So I guess I am advocating experience here and longevity in community service and in service as a city council person. So that's my background in a nutshell, and I appreciate you listening.
Oh, thank you. Any further comments? I'm just going to say, I don't think we could have two better candidates. I've been very fortunate the last few months to have worked with Travis on some issues, and regardless of how this turns out, I know you'll stay very committed to, I know, economic development and the many initiatives, and don't think that just the vice mayor is going to have an increased workload. I assure you all of us are going to, with the many great opportunities that have presented themselves recently. So is there, we have two nominees currently. Is there any further discussion? So, point of order, how do we go about doing this?
It's a unique aspect how we're doing this. I
Right.
guess you could just ask for a vote
Okay.
of each person,
Okay.
Ask in order which person you want to select. So.
Okay, wonderful. So I guess we'll start at the end.
My vote would be for Councilmember Miles.
I have to vote for myself.
Yes.
I would vote for myself.
I think Councilmember Miles would be my choice selection.
And after your very powerful speech, I will also support Councilmember Miles.
I agree that both are well qualified, but I will support Councilmember Lingenfelter.
And I would support Council Member Lingenfelter as well.
And now,
I support Councilmember Miles.
so therefore, we have a majority that supports Councilman,
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Miles. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And Travis, please be assured we're going to rely on your expertise in leadership roles as we look towards economic development
fine.
initiatives.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see. We have discussion and appointment of council liaisons to City of Kingman boards and commissions and the WACOG Executive Committee. I have prepared and tried to accommodate your requests, at the same time rotating all the council members on these various boards and commissions. I hope you've had the opportunity to look it over and would recommend a motion to approve. Would ask for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the list of boards and commissions with the new council members.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Moving on to call to the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council this evening? Yes, could you please approach?
Do I need to fill out a request form?
Oh, we can do that later. If you care to approach the microphone, please, and state your name.
I am so disappointed this evening. This is Christmas week, and I don't know about everybody here in this room, but I know everything that's going on within a 200-mile radius of this whole area.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't, I usually find out about it within at least a month or so. It took me 45 minutes to get over Coyote Pass today. And when I tried to contact Kingman Police Department, they said, that's out of our jurisdiction. We're going to switch you to Highway Patrol. Highway Patrol didn't even bother answering their phone. So then I called back again. I couldn't get in touch with the chief of police. I wanted to find out what was going on. Finally, someone at the Mojave County Sheriff's Department transferred me to ADOT, to a lady named Carol, and then Carol transferred me to another person, and then I called the mayor's office. I don't know who I spoke to, but she said that they're having a city council meeting tonight. Now, I've been to Lee Williams, I've been to all the meetings for the Future Levy, and I don't even want to get started on that. But in case of an emergency, somebody could have died tonight on Coyote Pass because of that traffic. I talked to 2 people. I couldn't even shop straight at Smith's. I was so infuriated over what had happened to me. And I've been stuck in that traffic before. 20 minutes I can see, not 45 minutes, not an hour and a half. All because those some transform underneath the ground blew up or something like that for construction that went on in front of Carl's Jr. that should have never happened in the first place. Who puts one lane underneath a major overpass with a major I-40 going over the top of it? You come off Andy Devine, now you're stuck in front of Carl's Jr. Or you're forced to get back on the highway, or you have to cut somebody off to get over the left-hand lane to go underneath there to get where the freeway ends to get into Golden Valley, Laughlin, Bullhead City, or whatever. Okay? I couldn't reach you as being the mayor. I contacted Google. Google says Richard Andrews is the former mayor. I mean, you haven't even changed the Google site for the mayor. And my blood is just boiling right now, okay? Because I talked to 2 or 3 people at Smith's, and they're just as upset. They heard me on the phone. I had to vent to 4 people before I came down here tonight. I'm talking safety issues.
Yes.
And as the mayor, you should be aware of what's going on at all times. Take the chief of police out to lunch once a month. Something. You're not informed. I just sent you an email the other night on the chemtrails. You emailed me back. Okay, don't get me even started on that.
Thank you very much for sharing your comments.
I mean,
I'm very sorry.
It's not all going to
for
come out right, but I'm upset.
inconvenience.
I'm paying my taxes.
Thank you for sharing with us tonight. Does anyone else wish to address the council this evening? Okay. Yes, please approach and state your name.
My name is Jean Bishop. I'm county supervisor, currently the chairman of the board, and I just wanted to congratulate you all. And I'm really looking forward to the next few years where we're obviously going to be working close together on water issues and other issues that affect the county and the city together. So kudos to all of you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here this evening. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. All matters listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. We've all had the opportunity to review the consent agenda. Anyone wish to pull anything for discussion? You mentioned, did you want to?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Let me find that page real quick.
Item B.
Yes, item B, the UNS utility easement request. I'd like to pull that from the consent agenda, and we can maybe discuss that.
Okay, do we have a motion for the balance of the consent agenda? which would
Move
be
that
A and C?
I move that we accept the consent agenda items A and C.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, so for discussion is now item B, UNS utility easement request. UNS Electric is requesting a 20-foot easement east of Flightline Drive adjacent to the access way south of the airport terminal building to improve electrical service to Air Methods, formerly Tri-State Care Flight, new crew quarters at the Kingman Airport and Industrial Park. Staff recommends approval. Good evening, Bob. Did we want to start with your specific questions, or did you want some background information first?
Yes, and Let me ask some specific questions,
Wonderful,
and at that
thank you.
point, maybe he can
Okay.
enlighten us here. One of the, well, let me just kind of talk about this easement. Obviously, the grantee would be UNS Electric, Inc. This is an easement wherein the city would be allowing this company to place electrical wires and such underneath the property. One thing that kind of was an issue for me and why I'd like to discuss this is that the contract, although it is only a page and a half, it has several elements I think maybe we should explore. One of those items is this easement or this contract would allow the UNS Electric Company to essentially build whatever they want on top of that property. It looks like the easement's intent is to allow them to, obviously place these electric lines underneath. However, it says in the contract that they're also allowed to add electric lines, conduits, cables, vaults, manholes, handholds. But the things that are more concerning to me are that it would include above-ground enclosures, markers, concrete pads, risers, poles, anchors, guy wires, and other fixtures at UNS Electric's discretion. So basically, they'd be allowed to build whatever they want on top of this property. And if further down in the contract, it restricts the city from doing essentially anything. It says that the city would not be permitted to erect any buildings, landscaping, earth, fill, walls, or fences on that property that would still be owned by the city. So I guess that's concerning to me that they kind of have they could do pretty much whatever they want on that property at any time from now till forever. So that's one of the issues I had. Also, the contract includes that this agreement is being entered into for good and valuable consideration. I can assume what that consideration would be. Obviously, it wouldn't be a monetary consideration, but I'm sure you'll tell us what that consideration is. I have other questions, but perhaps this would be a good time to address those issues.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Wyatt, Bob Riley, Director of Economic Development for Kingman Airport Authority. And I must apologize for UNS not being able to make it tonight. I advised them that I would be here in case questions were asked. Madam Mayor, Councilman Wyatt, you've asked some very specific questions regarding the nature of an easement and what a utility easement allows the different parties that enter into it. And very similar to what the city might allow for a water or sewer line easement, the language within this power line is similar. What we have is a condition to where Air Methods is improving their crew quarters, and they're moving their facilities from the street back towards the ramp area. And the previous building that was on the pad that they're currently moving to had power service that went across the parking lot and was not within a unified, identified location. This cleans up that situation. It gives us a situation to where we can plan around specific utilities and move towards future development without haphazard development. Regarding enumeration, I can't address that. That would be between the city and Unisource.
Okay, and I just have a few follow-up questions. Obviously, the airport and the industrial park we all feel is a very valuable asset, and it's very possible in the near future, or even in the distant future, there will be growth. So with respect to where this easement is placed, will that inhibit construction near that area? Are we going to have to, because we're not able to build fences or anything on top of that, are we going to have to build streets that kind of bend around that area, or is
Madam
this
Mayor,
a location?
Councilman Wyatt, by identifying this easement, we can expand within it and accommodate future growth. We have a planning tool as opposed to a haphazard layout of utility lines. And I believe that this does allow us to tap into development that, quite frankly, would go into the terminal area.
Okay. Well, have we granted any easements in the past that could
Yes.
possibly be used as?
This proposed development? No.
Yes.
No.
Are they
This
in-
is a site-specific easement.
Is it because it's going to a specific building? Is that why it's site-specific, or?
At this time, yes. As I say, though, with the proposed easement, it goes up a identified driveway and it comes into the site. It can be expanded to future development.
And I guess perhaps I would maybe direct some of the questions to the city attorney. In terms of, I guess, restricting the city from doing anything on top of that property in the event that, that area grows and maybe we want to make changes to it, or perhaps restrict the electric company from building 500-foot, structures. Is there any way that we can limit that or change the language of the contract to have the electric company come back to the city council or to somebody directed by the city council, some city employee, so that they can, approve of any future construction on that site?
Well, it's not just a free-for-all. There's going to be restrictions based on the zoning that's out there, which is obviously going to be county zoning, as well as FAA restrictions. So nothing that could happen there could interfere with airport operations, would be my take based on what Mr. Riley's saying.
And then Mr. Riley referred to the consideration that I was talking about. Would you like to enlighten the council as to what the consideration would be for this type of contract?
Sure, and I know when I first started looking back, there was a lot of these easements would be for $1 or $10, and things seem to move away from that when you look at basically the consideration that is going to be involved with the improvement of the property itself, as well as providing electrical access to those tenants in the area, to the city, the community as a whole. And then when you look back, now this is outside city limits, but inside the city limits, there's the franchise agreement where, which grants Unisource, access to our right-of-ways, and we get 2% of their sales. I think that kind of all wraps into how you're paid for some of these services and how you're paid for these exchanges of properties or easements. Now, if the council is unhappy with that we can always go back and add a nominal remuneration. But I think if you look at, if you're trying to get a fair market value, the fair market value would be probably less than, what an appraisal would cost. So this is pretty standard. I know it's the same, pretty much the same language we've been using for, probably the past 10 years. So. But we're always open to change if council wants to move in a different direction.
And so the only thing that would restrict any structure built on that parcel would be the zoning ordinances governing at the time that it...
Well, I mean, when you're looking at this as a public utility easement, I don't even know how big this property is. Bob might be able to answer some of that question, but, whatever building codes are out there, like I say, Yes, that is restricted by whatever overlaying ordinances, codes, and zoning that exist. If there's something that you don't like in this, we can take this back and talk to Unisource and strike something if that's what we need.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Wyatt, the site for this proposed structure is 3/10 of an acre. I think the real answer to your question is what prohibits the Unisource building over this easement something that we would not approve of. The fact of the matter is that this is a leasehold interest. The leasehold was reviewed and approved by the Airport Authority. The proposed easement is an accommodation to improve and expand these facilities, and it's necessary for their operations. And we would review any developments at the airport and pass it through our board of directors.
Does that answer your question?
Sort of. Sorry, I'm
No,
a
that's
pill
all right.
here.
This is how we learn.
But I'm not sure how, if they construct some sort of structure on this property, how would you be able to govern it as part of the Kingman Airport? You mentioned that it would go through you first, but according to this, they wouldn't need authority from anyone. They would simply have to abide by whatever terms zoning ordinances exist at that time.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Wyatt, as a result of the lease review and the proposed improvements, the site plan was submitted to Mojave County zoning for a building permit. And as part of that building permit process, the easement was suggested. So we are accommodating our tenant with proposed improvements to facilitate their expansion.
Okay, and have you discussed the possibility of limiting what fixtures could be erected in that area? Or is it just, I understand that this
We're looking at a linear, we are looking at a linear easement, 20-foot wide. And the reason it's proposed to be 20-foot wide is if in the event future expansion requires 480 power, it'll have to go above ground. And a 480 power line will require a guy wire on the pole. So that's why the 20-foot easement. We currently have 480 power in the street. The proposed service that's going to come into this improvement is not that sized. We don't anticipate ever needing a 480 power through that area.
Okay.
That's a manufacturing load.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, what's your pleasure? Item B, consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept item B of the consent agenda.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Thank you. We have no old business to discuss this evening, so moving on to new business. 6A, discussion on Kingman Crossing. We do have someone signed up to speak on this issue. Let me start by saying staff is seeking direction on how council wishes to proceed with Kingman Crossing. So this is actually more of a housekeeping issue. It is the unanimous will of the council that we move forward with the Kingman Crossing project. This item is on the agenda just to essentially empower staff to take the necessary steps in order to move this project forward. Obviously, staff will come to the council in a public forum if there are any roadblocks, no pun intended, or any changes from what we're currently anticipating. So this was essentially a way of giving them the direction and the empowerment they need to move the project forward without having to revisit it with council every 2 weeks. So having said that, we'll go ahead and call Mr. Dickmeyer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before moving forward, I'd like to step back a little bit and take some look at this. Between the city money, incoming money, any monies, it's going to be very hard to build one interchange, let alone two. So I think we need to look at the best solution for Kingman. And I don't think it's Kingman Crossing because it has no access. So I'd like to offer some options. I would like to have you access a new feasible study to be conducted, including Rancho Santa Fe Parkway as a potential crossing of I-40. A feasibility study dated August 10, 2015 was done for potential crossing of I-40. Only Kingman Crossing area was put in the study. Rancho Santa Fe Parkway was not included. When asked why the parkway was not included in the study, the mayor and city manager said both interchanges were needed, but Kingman Crossing should be done first. How can you decide what is best for the growth of the future of the city of Kingman if all options are not considered? I hope this new administration and council would consider all options. Everyone agrees that Kingman Airport and surrounding industrial park, railroad, and future commercial space and a shipping hub is one of the greatest opportunities for long-time growth of the city of Kingman. So I believe we need to look at all options to increase our retail tax base and provide unrestricted access to the airport and the industrial park. If you include Rancho Santa Fe Parkway as an option, you will see more growth potential for retail, commercial, the airport, the industrial park, the railroad, and a much better traffic flow for the eastern side of Kingman, now and in the long term. Things to consider, just one or two things. Kingman Crossing Interchange. Access road to the north ends at Santa Rosa Drive. Access road to the south ends at Louise. On both sides, you have to work your way through residential roads to reach the airport or Wallapai Mountain Road. As proposed in the study, I don't believe that you'd be able to make this a commercial truck route, neither north or south, especially to the airport. There is no clear path for the oversized loads or hazardous materials. They would not be allowed on these streets, nor the streets could handle the heavy traffic. Kingman Crossing is also limited for future growth. Rancho Santa Fe Parkway interchange to the north is unrestricted path to the airport and the same unrestricted path to the Wallapai Mountain Road. Both north and south could become truck routes.
Mr. Dickmeyer, I know you don't want to hear the beep.
Couple more. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to hear the beep, but whatever.
Okay, if you could kindly wrap up your
I'll
comments.
wrap it up. A major parkway encircling the entire eastern bench of Kingman could change Kingman forever. Positive traffic flows, large retail opportunity, new manufacturing base, and a shipping hub, all potential for increasing jobs, opportunity, and creating new sustainable tax revenue.
Mr. Dickmeyer, thank you very much for your comments. I want you to know, sir, that we're going to have a public workshop next month to discuss the various options of Kingman Crossing project. We'll have an economist and a financial advisor here. We'd very much like you to come and participate and learn about what we're doing moving forward.
I will come to that, but as the comments tonight, you said it's a done deal and you're moving forward, so I'm just asking you if there's any possibility of revisiting it, because I think we only have one shot at this. If we do the wrong interchange, the other one won't happen, and there goes our industrial park.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone have any questions or comments? And thank you for being here this evening. Okay, so having said that, is there any further discussion on the moving forward on the Kingman Crossing project?
I would like to probably comment or maybe
Please.
Clarify. Mm-hmm. When we talk Kingman Crossing, I think we talk several items, and we need to know what we're actually moving forward on. Kingman Crossing the property, Kingman Crossing the throughway from north to south, or Kingman Crossing the actual on and off ramp overpass. If we're discussing Kingman Crossing the 151 acres, mm-hmm. Then I understand, and I think we need to go forward with what we were talking about. Rancho Santa Fe or rattlesnake wash, whatever you want to call it, I think is critical to the growth of the airport. But we have to clarify what is Kingman Crossing when we speak, because then we get people thinking we're building an overpass, and I don't think that's what our intention here, is it?
Correct. And perhaps if we could get, Greg, would you mind addressing the council on this? The reason this is on the agenda this evening. Sorry to put you on the spot, but again, we were just looking for clarification moving forward for staff.
How can I help, Mayor?
Well, as we've discussed in the past, there are certain steps and there's a timeline these steps need to be accomplished. If we are moving forward with the interchange, the bigger city-owned property, and if you could maybe help explain to council where you're going and the direction you needed from council so you can move forward, we can meet our deadlines and not have to revisit this issue twice a month, slowing down the process.
Sure. So let me just start and say, with respect to the interchange, what's on the books now is a design concept report that was completed back in 2007, 2008. And it only allows interstate access to the north side of I-40. No access to the south side. So earlier this month, we brought forth a design contract with respect to strictly designing the road that would go underneath I-40, connecting to Southern Avenue on the south and Airway Avenue on the north. Council decided to hold off on awarding that contract at this point. What I would propose would be to bring back, maybe reduce the scope of that to prepare the design from Southern Avenue and stop just on the south side of I-40 where the current design concept report takes place, based on some discussions of having the public workshop next month and the partnering session and proceeding with that to try and get the entire interchange built is my understanding of what that meeting will entail. There's two key things to continuing forward with that design for Kingman Crossing Boulevard. One would be the change of access to allow interstate access to the south, to the city's property, the 150 plus or minus acres there. A second key item, in my opinion, is securing the right-of-way across state trust land, what we call Section 16, through the middle, where Kingman Crossing Boulevard will ultimately come through and connect to Southern Avenue. The third option item out there is the city's property. Obviously, we know it was approved by the voters to go up for sale. There's probably some things we should be looking at doing. One would be maybe creating a subdivision for that property to carve out the ultimate right-of-way that the city needs for the interchange and for the roads that will ultimately go through that area. There's a considerable amount of drainage on the west side of that property. We could identify that with the subdivision and carve that area out as well for future drainage needs. And then that way we would know how much property there is to actually available for commercial development, which may help with saleability of that property. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
No, that helps tremendously. Essentially what we're trying to do is not stop everything until we've had this public workshop. We know we're going to get a lot of insight in what's the best direction. Right now everything's on the table. But between now and then, I know you need a direction on moving forward with acquiring the right-of-way, et cetera. If we want to maybe look at a motion to just approve those issues that you've discussed this evening. I just don't want everything to stop until the end of January.
Well, I have spoke with the engineer that submitted the proposal at the December 6th meeting. He's working to reduce the scope, and I should have something from him that I can bring to council on January 3rd. And again, the two key items would be change of access from Interstate 40 to allow it to go south through the city's property and through State Section 16. That can be a time-consuming process. It ultimately requires the Federal Highways Administration to approve that. And in addition, the State Trust Land Department, working with them, can be a time-consuming process. So that would be my recommendation, that we, let me bring back a revised agreement, and we can proceed with at least those two options.
Great, thank you. Yes.
One question. I'm trying to make sure I understand this. So when you bring back a revised proposal in January, did you say that it will take out the portion about the state land and just go, but there will be a southern connection so that we have the public safety access?
Yes, we have had some discussions with the state land.
Mm-hmm.
You were obviously on the council when the direction came to try and
Right.
obtain that right away through there. They are open to it. They want to see some roadway alignments, some alternatives.
But would your proposal extend to that, the one that you're going to bring back?
Yes.
Okay, so what would you take, what is the content that is reduced? Because right now we were looking at I think a $900 and something thousand contract for the underpass and looking at all those options.
So
now you're saying you'll come back with a reduced scope, and I'm still trying to understand what's reduced, what's taken out.
So the design would end on the south side of I-40 instead of continuing north to Airway Avenue. So essentially, the design for the bridges under I-40, for Kingman Crossing to be built under I-40, that would be taken out of the scope, as well as any design north of I-40.
How would the public safety be served? Wouldn't it have to go under to Santa Rosa at least?
It would. I think the idea is, depending on what happens with the meeting for the financing for the entire interchange.
Okay.
So
Right,
they would have to both be built simultaneously. But we could proceed with the design at this point.
Okay.
Can I say very simply stated, we just want to accomplish what we know are going to be essential parts of this project without any additional delays. That's as simple, and I apologize for putting you on the spot.
It's okay.
You did
That's
a
what I'm here
great
for.
job. I thought I heard someone had a comment down here.
I was going to comment, but she brought it up. I think one of the reasons why we wanted to move this forward was the public safety aspect.
Right.
And that's why I think the entire project has to be considered, not just stopping it at Santa Rosa, because then, albeit you now have created the north or south to north, but now you're backtracking to get up to Prospector, which is
Right.
kind of the key area that we wanted to make sure we could hit from a public safety standpoint.
That's very true.
It's true, and that's going to be addressed. We just
Right.
kind of do a bigger picture visioning, but in the meantime, allow staff to proceed with what we know is going to be an integral part of the project that is not going to vary.
Okay.
Travis, you look deep in thought.
Always.
Comments? I know. No comments? Okay. Did that answer your question?
I believe so. So we will get a proposal in January, and we will have our meeting in January.
Absolutely.
So it'll all move forward.
Okay.
And I think the hope would be that as our design proceeds, that the other design could proceed at the same time, so they could hopefully be both ready to be built at the same time.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Mayor, before we move off of this, I would like some further clarification, or at least some acknowledgement from the council. One of the things I've been asked to do is contact Applied Economics to start the study of how much revenues we can anticipate from this. I have contacted that lady. She will charge us $8,500. That's within my discretion to approve it. However, it's not a budgeted item.
Okay.
And so I have several questions for the council. Assuming that you want to go forward with Applied Economics, and when we get to the point of negotiating with a developer, we'd have to get a third party to verify what they say. So that won't be the only expenditure for projections. Secondly, since this is not a budgeted item, we will have to take it from contingency, which we will bring back to the council. My question is, do I have the approval to go ahead and contract with Applied Economics and get that done? And the secondary question of that is, assuming the council's going to want to go forward, and that will be the direction from the council, is there a ceiling on the dollar amount that you want to tell me, bring it back before we go beyond that? Or do you just want to be kept up to, I can email you as to what is happening and what possibly could be spent, and then we will bring in sometime later next year, I would suppose, to say, okay, we've hit the ceiling, we need you to approve, taken from contingency, and do we want to continue on and reset that ceiling? So that's the direction I'm looking for from council. I do have one item already, and I need you to acknowledge that, and yes, you want it to go forward, and this is part of the moving forward that we're discussing.
Okay, well, I'll start by saying that I think this is very important information that we have going forward, knowing what this potentially could look like, what kind of revenues we can project for decades to come. That is going to be very helpful in determining how we start, how we proceed, and what our investment should be. I personally support it, but would like to hear from the other council members.
I'm in total agreement. I mean, it's the first step. It's not the only step, but I think it's key. It would be great if we could have that information by the time we have our workshop. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that can be done, but yeah, I think it's a critical component to moving forward.
Thank you.
I support the analysis. I'm not real familiar with applied economics. Is this a firm, local firm, or is this?
They're not local. They're Arizona.
They're Arizona.
Yeah, they're in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And we have knowledge of their.
Yeah, there's really the big three in Arizona. I mean, you have they're one of the big three firms. GPEC uses them all the time down in Phoenix.
So they've been vetted by other organizations.
She's
Yes.
I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Well,
this is what they do.
This data, we're talking about the dedicated revenue stream that's going to help us repay this project, and we haven't even tried to wrap our minds around what are we looking at. I mean, we have an estimated project cost, but the financing, as you said last meeting, has always been the issue, and we have to get our minds wrapped around what sort of revenue, if this is going to be the dedicated revenue source for this project, what are we looking at? It's the first part of the puzzle, and once you have that data, then you can start looking at financing packages.
I totally agree.
Set that up.
I totally agree. I do believe we have to understand the increased revenue. I have one more question, and I'm not sure who to direct this at. We contracted to have a retail study done by Buxton to target certain retail. How will this align with that study, or will it be in time? Because they're working now to help us target retail.
Right.
And it seems to me like if we know the targeted retail, that's going to help us refine that projected income stream. And so I'm wondering if there's any crossing of this data that can be.
Let's hope so, because the former council made that commitment. So
Right.
certainly we're going to use that data, whatever they present, to the best of our ability to maximize
Right.
what we're bringing to the city.
to them.
Let me refresh. Was that a 3-year deal for like $160,000 altogether?
But it's renewable.
Yes,
now.
and they're supposed to have some information rather quickly to us, within months, and a kind of an analysis that includes our targeted retail. So it just seems that would help if applied economics had that kind of information in projecting revenues.
It's very
Just
true.
thinking.
We'll certainly make use of whatever data they present.
Good. We need to
Any other
leverage
questions or-
resources.
Right. Any other questions on this item moving forward with Kingman Crossing? Are we clear on what scope we're talking about now? Yes?
Yes.
Hearing so, I will entertain a motion.
About applied economics, or?
Well, yeah, I guess is it the motion is to...
Well, yeah,
So I would like to make a motion to allow the city manager to spend up to $10,000 and no more in regards to the applied economics analysis for Kingman Crossing.
I'll second that.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, thank you. Now, we're clear on Kingman Crossing, do we need to make a motion on that as well?
I think you provided the direction.
Okay, perfect, good to know.
Mr. Henry needs to come back.
Okay, thank you. So we can move on now to last item of business, which would be 6B, goals and objectives for manager and attorney. As the public knows, the city council has 3 direct hires. That would be the city manager, the city attorney, and the city magistrate. Having said that, we have a majority of a new council here that is not familiar with the previous goals and objectives that the previous council has given to these employees. Additionally, knowing that some of the new council has some different priorities, I suggested that the mayor and council, and we might start with a subcommittee of maybe 3 people. Everyone will, of course, review the most recent evaluations for the city manager and the city attorney, and then we set and memorialize some goals and objectives so that you can have a fair and appropriate evaluation. You'll have your performance measures in place, which comes from the direction of the council, the direction we want to see the city go. And this will enable you, or I like to say empower you, to know and have a clear understanding of what the expectations are from the 7 people, which has got to be kind of boggling that you're trying to deal with 7 people. So if we can memorialize something that you know what our expectations are and we can measure those results. Having said that, again, everyone will have to take a look at these evaluations, but can I maybe get 3 people interested in creating a subcommittee coming up with goals, questions, and those kind of things? Employer background.
I would be interested.
Okay. 1, 2. Okay, we'll have 3 begin that process. So if that's the will of the council, we'll move forward.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Do we need a motion on that?
Well, I think the consensus is
Okay,
fine.
wonderful. Okay, there are nothing under reports. Final item of business tonight, announcements. I want to say good evening, Supervisor Bishop. Thank you so much. We were fortunate to meet with you and Gary Watson today and some representatives of the county to talk about our concerns with our water supply. And thank you very much for your wonderful suggestion that we partner. And as I said, we're hosting a workshop next month regarding our water issues, the challenges, and potential solutions, and would very much appreciate it if members from the county supervisors and your staff could be in attendance. And we'll get some water experts, if you will, to come and help educate all of us and the public as to what we're facing and how to best deal with it.
Thank you, Mary Deans, and we'll be glad to attend and bring our representatives with us.
Thank you so much. We'll let you know when we get the date set on that. Thanks. Okay, that was it. I don't have any other announcements. Anything from anyone?
I just wanted to update. In the last meeting, we talked about Councilman Abrams and I meeting with the Downtown Merchants Association to further discuss a vision and a plan for beautifying our downtown. We have not been able to set a date yet to meet with them. We've been in touch, but that meeting will hopefully happen before the next council meeting so that we can come back and update everybody on where we're at with that.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Well, I would just like to wish everyone Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And I also want to thank you again for your support. And for me as Vice Mayor, I look forward to serving.
And we look forward to it as well. And Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm sure that's our sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Beat me to it. I was saying Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, peace, health, and prosperity, happiness to everyone.
Hearing that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all so much for coming. Have a pleasant evening.